Dear wife, get me back my leg. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. John 15:12. The moment our eyes met, I flinched. His eyes were too sharp and glaring to look at easily, because when he looked straight at me, his look felt extremely steely and fierce. Every time I put our participants' shoes together, there would always be an odd shoe, and I would look around thinking, that's strange, where is the other one? An odd hiking boot, an odd sneaker. He, who had been sitting on a chair, was now standing on crutches. I noticed the left leg of his pants was empty. I glanced at him. Still, his eyes looked cold yet furious. He must have a story to tell. I decided to wait until he willingly opened up and wanted to share his story. It had been well past a month since he came to Seoram Shimto, when one day his eyes were welled up with tears and looked less angry, but softer and milder. He calmly shared his story. It was July of the previous year, when he had been diagnosed with a cancer called osteosarcoma, which he had never even known or heard of before. His doctor said, "We just need to do a simple surgery to cut out the spot with cancer." He agreed and scheduled for the surgery. However, his wife, who shared the same religious belief with him, had a different opinion. You should cure that cancer by faith, not by surgery. He missed the surgery date while being lost between his wife's insistence and the doctor's suggestion. The wife took him to a sanitarium in the countryside. She suggested him to keep checking for any further symptoms and go back to the hospital a full month later. Feeling clear symptoms of the cancer worsening day by day, he earnestly asked his wife to take him back to the hospital, but she was adamant, insisting that he go by faith alone. According to the wife's faith, they went back to the hospital a month later. The doctor was startled, saying that the cancer has spread all over his leg and that it would even threaten his life unless they amputated his entire leg. He felt as though the sky was falling. Cut off my leg? It wouldn't have been necessary were it not for my wife's insistence. Under general anesthesia, he had his left leg cut off all the way up to his thigh. As a result, he was now categorized in the third degree of disability. Out of despair and fury, he would wail all night. Many times he felt like killing himself. I'm only into my early 40s, and how could my life be ruined like this? Anger and resentment toward his wife always kept him upset. As he was telling his story, his fists trembled as he tried to suppress his anger and the temptation to lift his crutches and smash them. Shaking his head, he said, "I cannot possibly forgive my wife. Not as long as I live." His eyes were again filled with anger and hatred, and I knew it was toward his wife. He intently listened to the lectures at Shimta, and one day, during the lecture, his eyes were opened to the true love and grace of God. He learned that he was forgiven by the limitless and unconditional love of God. Touched by the word of God, he felt as though he could now let go of those feelings of hatred and resentment toward his wife. He could now forgive her. For the first time, he felt thankful to her, who had been enduring all the difficulties and hardships of taking care of him. His deep loathing towards her, which he thought would last even after he died, was now gone. All he could think about now was the times he had done wrong to her, not the times he had been good to her. He sent a text message to his wife asking for forgiveness. The wife, who had an indescribable feeling of guilt because of her unforgivable mistake, read his text message. It was a miracle. Knowing well enough about his personality, the message in front of her was unbelievable. When around him, she trembled because of the murderous look in his eyes. And he had changed completely now. She called her husband and cried. In tears, he also told her he loved her. He said that if the osteosarcoma spreads to his lungs, it can threaten his life. But the cancer had already spread to his lungs. However, as he had the precious experience of a personal encounter with God, he broke free from the fear of the disease. He said that he doesn't even think of the fact that he is a patient. He began to practice walking with an artificial leg. His face, on which no smile had existed, now radiates with a beautiful smile. He is happy and frequently sends text messages to tell her how he loves her and misses her. Evils into blessings. If it wasn't for his missing leg, I wouldn't have been able to meet God. You know, going to heaven without a leg is much better than not making it to heaven with a leg. Because when I go to heaven, Jesus will make me a new leg. In that regard, my wife is the best contributor to my redemption. Ha ha ha.